I didn't understand it at first. When my own daughter looked at me and said, "Mom, I don't think you should come to my wedding." For a second, I thought she was joking. But the way she avoided my eyes told me she meant every word. And in that moment, I realized something was very wrong. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't even ask why. I just nodded. And that's what shocked her the most. Because she was expecting something else.
A reaction.
A question. A reason for her to explain. But I gave her nothing. Not because it didn't hurt, but because something inside me had gone quiet. And when things go quiet like that, it usually means you've already started understanding something you're not ready to accept. This is Auntie Lily. And what I'm about to tell you is not just about a wedding. It's about the moment you realize that someone you love has already started pushing you out of their life. My daughter and I weren't the kind of mother and daughter who argued all the time. We had our differences. Of course we did. But there was always something stronger underneath. Connection. At least, that's what I believed. She used to call me almost every day. Not for anything important.
Just small things.
"Mom, what are you cooking? Did you see that show?" Guess what happened today? Those calls meant everything to me. Because they weren't just conversations. They were a reminder that no matter how busy life got, we were still close. But then, things started changing. Not all at once.
Slowly.
So slowly that at first, I didn't even notice. The calls became shorter. The messages took longer to reply. And the way she spoke felt just a little different. Not cold. Not distant. Just less warm. At first, I told myself it was nothing. She's busy. Life gets like this. That's what I believed. Until the day she told me she was getting married. I still remember that call. Clear as anything. "Mom, I have something to tell you," she said. Her voice sounded excited. But there was something else there too. Something I couldn't quite explain. "What is it?" I asked. There was a small pause. Then she said it. "I'm getting married." I smiled immediately. Not because I was surprised, but because I had been waiting for that moment. Every mother does. "That's wonderful," I said. "Tell me everything." And she did.
She told me about him.
About how they met. About the proposal. She told me everything. But at the same time, it felt like she wasn't really sharing it with me. It felt like she was just
telling me.
There's a difference. And if you've ever felt it, you know exactly what I mean. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to ruin the moment. So I listened, smiled, reacted, the way a mother should. But deep inside, that quiet feeling came back. Something wasn't right. Over the next few weeks, everything moved fast. Wedding plans.
Dates.
Venues. But somehow, I wasn't part of it. Not really. I heard about things after decisions were already made. I saw pictures after everything was already chosen. And every time I told myself, it's okay. This is her moment. But the truth was, it didn't feel like I was part of that moment at all. And then, one evening, she came to see me. She sat across from me.
Quiet.
Not excited. Not nervous. Just serious. That's when I knew something was coming. "Mom," she said softly. And the way she said it made my chest tighten. Because that tone wasn't about wedding plans. It was about something else. Something I wasn't ready to hear. "I need to talk to you about something," she said. I nodded, trying to stay calm. "What is it?" I asked. She looked down, just for a moment, then back at me. And what she said next was something I never expected to hear from my own daughter. "Mom, I don't think you should come to the wedding." The words felt unreal, like they didn't belong in that moment. For a second, I thought I misunderstood. "I'm sorry, what?" I asked. She didn't rush to explain.
She just looked at me.
And that look told me everything. "I don't think it's a good idea," she said again. A good idea. Like I was a problem. Like my presence would ruin something. I felt something shift inside me. Not anger. Not sadness. Just silence. A deep, heavy silence. And in that silence, I made a decision. I didn't argue.
I didn't ask why.
I didn't try to change her mind. I just looked at her and nodded. Okay, I said. And the moment I said that, her expression changed. Because that wasn't a reaction she expected. Not at all. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't see, was that something had already started inside me. Something quiet. Something steady. Because even though I said I wouldn't come, I had already made up my mind. And when the day of her wedding came, I was already there. I didn't tell her what I was thinking. I didn't let it show. Because sometimes, the moment you react emotionally is the moment you lose control of what's really happening. And something about this situation
Told me I needed to stay quiet.
but that didn't mean I wasn't thinking. Because the question kept repeating in my mind, over and over again.
Why?
Why would my own daughter not want me at her wedding?
That's not a small thing.
That's not something you say casually. There's always a reason. Even if it's hidden. Even if it's uncomfortable. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized something. This didn't start that day. It started much earlier. I just didn't see it clearly at the time. Or maybe I chose not to. Because when it's your own child, you don't look for problems. You look for excuses. The next few days felt strange. Not dramatic. Just different. She didn't call. Not even once. And that wasn't normal. No matter how busy she was. There was always a message. A quick check-in. Something. But this time, nothing. And that silence felt louder than any argument we could have had. I picked up my phone more times than I want to admit. Scrolled through our messages. Read old conversations. Looking for something I might have missed.
Some sign.
Some moment where things changed. And then, I saw it. A message from a few weeks ago. Simple.
Short.
But different. Mom, I might be busy these days. Don't worry if I don't reply quickly. At the time, I didn't think much of it. It sounded normal.
But now,
it felt like a warning. Like she was preparing distance before creating it. And that thought didn't sit right with me. Because people don't just pull away like that. Not without a reason. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was angry, but because my mind wouldn't stop. Every small detail, every moment, every conversation started replaying in my head. And the more I thought about it, the more one question kept coming back. Was this really her decision? Or was someone else influencing it? That thought stayed with me. Because I had never seen her behave like this before. Not with me. Not even during difficult times. So what changed? Or more importantly,
who changed it?
The next morning, I made a decision. I wasn't going to ask her directly. Not yet. Because I knew what would happen. She would give me a simple answer. A safe answer. Something that wouldn't explain anything. And I didn't want another explanation that didn't feel real. I wanted the truth. Even if it was uncomfortable. Even if it hurt. So instead of calling her, I did something else. Something I hadn't done in a long time. I called someone who knew her well. Her best friend. The one person who had been close to her. Even before I noticed things changing. The phone rang twice. Then she picked up. Hi, is everything okay? She asked. Her voice sounded normal. Too normal. And that made me even more careful with my words. I just wanted to ask you something, I said. Of course, she replied. I hesitated for a second. Then I asked the question that had been sitting in my mind all night. Has she said anything about me? There was a pause. A small one, but enough. And in that pause, I felt something tighten inside me. Because silence sometimes says more than words.
No, not really, she said.
But something in her tone didn't feel right. It wasn't what she said. It was how she said it. Careful. Like she was choosing her words. And that's when I knew. There was something she wasn't telling me. I'm just asking because I paused. She told me not to come to the wedding. The line went quiet. Completely quiet. And that silence confirmed everything I was starting to feel. Wait, she said what? Her friend asked. That reaction was real. Not planned. Not careful.
Real.
She told me she doesn't think I should come, I said. Another pause. Longer this time. And then, something changed in her voice. Something serious. That doesn't sound like her, she said.
Exactly.
That's what I had been thinking, but hearing it from someone else made it real. And that's when I understood something that made my chest tighten. This wasn't just distance. This wasn't just stress. Something else was going on. Something I hadn't seen yet. And whatever it was strong enough to make my own daughter push me away. But what she didn't know, what no one knew, was that I wasn't going to stay away. Because no matter what was happening, no matter what she said, I needed to see it with my own eyes. And when the day came, I wasn't going to be missing. After that call, I didn't feel better. I felt worse. Because when something doesn't make sense, and then someone else confirms it doesn't make sense, it stops being confusion. It becomes a warning. I sat there for a long time, phone still in my hand, thinking about everything her friend had said. Or more importantly, everything she didn't say. Because sometimes, people don't lie with words. They lie with silence. And that silence was loud. I kept asking myself the same question. If this doesn't sound like her, then who does it sound like? That thought stayed with me. And slowly, it started pointing in one direction. Someone else. Someone close to her. Someone with influence. And there was only one person that fit that place. Him. Her fiancé. I didn't know him well. Not the way I wanted to. Not the way a mother should know the person her daughter is about to marry. And maybe that was the first mistake. Because now, I was trying to understand someone without really knowing who they were. I thought back to the few times I had met him. Nothing obvious. Nothing direct. He was polite, respectful, but there was something about him that always made me feel slightly uncomfortable. Not enough to question, just enough to notice. And I ignored it, because I didn't want to be that kind of mother. The one who judges too quickly. The one who interferes. So I stayed quiet. But now, that quiet feeling came back again.
Stronger this time.
Because everything started connecting. The distance. The change in her tone. The way she spoke about the wedding. And now, this. Telling me not to come. That's not just stress. That's influence. That night, I kept thinking about something her friend said. That doesn't sound like her. Those words didn't leave my mind. Because if it didn't sound like her, then who is she listening to? The next day, I didn't call my daughter. I didn't message her. Because I knew something. If I pushed too soon, she would close off completely. And then I would know even less. So instead, I waited. Not passively.
Carefully.
Because waiting doesn't mean doing nothing. Sometimes, it means watching. And that's exactly what I started doing. I paid attention to everything. Her messages. Her tone. The way she responded. And slowly, patterns started to appear. She didn't respond when I called. But she would reply later. Short.
Quick. No emotion. No words.
Just enough to keep distance. Without cutting it completely. And that told me something important. She wasn't comfortable. Not with me. But also, not with the situation. Because if she was truly okay with her decision, she wouldn't avoid me like that.
She would stand by it.
But she wasn't. She was avoiding. And people only avoid when something doesn't feel right inside them. That realization changed something in me. Because now, this wasn't just about being hurt. This was about understanding what was happening. And helping her, even if she didn't realize she needed it. A few days later, something unexpected happened. She called me. Out of nowhere. I looked at the screen for a moment.
Surprised.
Because she hadn't called in days. I answered. Hello. Her voice came through. Mom.
Soft.
Careful. Like, she didn't know how I would respond. And in that moment, I made another decision. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. Because I needed her to talk. Not defend.
Hi, I said.
Normal.
Calm.
How are you? There was a small pause. I'm okay, she said. But something about that answer didn't feel real. We talked for a few minutes. Simple things. Safe things. And then, right when I thought the conversation was about to end, she said something that made my heart stop for a second. Mom, I didn't mean to hurt you. There it was. the truth. Not fully said, but present. Because people don't apologize unless they know something is wrong. And, in that moment, I understood something clearly. She wasn't comfortable with what she had said, which meant it wasn't fully her decision. But what I didn't understand yet was why she felt like she had no choice. Her voice stayed in my mind long after the call ended. I didn't mean to hurt you. It sounded simple, but it carried something deeper. Because when someone says that, they're not just talking about what happened. They're talking about something they couldn't avoid. And that's what stayed with me. Couldn't avoid. That meant pressure. That meant influence. That meant someone else was involved. And the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. This wasn't just her decision. Someone had pushed her into it. Someone had made her believe that keeping me away was the right thing to do.
But why?
That question stayed with me. Because no matter how I looked at it, nothing made sense. Until a memory came back to me. One I hadn't thought about in a long time. It was the first time I met him properly. Not just a quick introduction. A real conversation. We were sitting at a small table. My daughter was talking, smiling. But he wasn't really listening. He was watching. Watching her. Watching me. Like he was trying to understand something. Or measure something. At the time, I ignored it. Because it wasn't obvious. It wasn't rude. Just noticeable. And now, that memory didn't feel small anymore. It felt important. Because when I thought about it again, I realized something. He didn't just observe. He adjusted. Every time she said something, he would slightly change his tone. His reaction. Like he was guiding the conversation. Without making it obvious. And suddenly, everything started to connect. The distance. The change in her behavior. The way she spoke. And now, the wedding. The decision. Keeping me away. It wasn't random. It was controlled. That realization didn't make me angry. It made me careful. Because if someone could influence her like that, then confronting it the wrong way would only push her further away. And I couldn't risk that.
Not now.
Not this close to the wedding. A few days later, I saw something that confirmed my suspicion. Not directly, but clearly enough. She sent me a picture.
A dress.
Her wedding dress. It was beautiful, simple, elegant. And for a moment, everything else faded. Because no matter what was happening, she was still my daughter. Do you like it? She asked. I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. It's perfect, I said. And I meant it. There was a pause. Then she said something quietly. He chose it. Those 3 words changed everything. Because I knew her. I knew what she liked. I knew how she made decisions. And choosing something like that should have been her moment. Her choice. But it wasn't. And that told me something I couldn't ignore anymore. This wasn't just influence. This was control. Slow, subtle, but real. And the more I thought about it, the more one truth became impossible to ignore. If he could influence her decisions like this, then asking her to keep me away wasn't just a suggestion. It was part of something bigger. Something I hadn't fully seen yet. But I was getting closer. Closer to understanding what was really happening. And the closer I got, the more I realized something that made my chest tighten. This wedding wasn't just a celebration. It was a turning point. And if I stayed away, I might lose her completely. After that message, I couldn't ignore it anymore. He chose it. Those words stayed with me. Not because of the dress, but because of what they meant. Little by little, piece by piece. She wasn't making her own decisions anymore. And that realization felt heavier than anything else. Because it wasn't just about being hurt. It was about losing something. Losing her. Not all at once, but slowly. In ways that were hard to notice. Until they were already happening. That night, I didn't sit in silence. I didn't scroll through old messages. I didn't try to convince myself everything was fine. Instead, I made a decision. A quiet one, but firm. I wasn't going to stay away. Not because I wanted to go against her, but because something inside me told me this wasn't really her decision. And if I stayed away, I might regret it for the rest of my life. The wedding was only a few days away. Everything was already planned. Everything was already set. Which meant, if I was going to be there, I had to do it carefully. Because this wasn't just about showing up. It was about understanding what was really happening. And seeing it with my own eyes. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. Not because I had somewhere to be, but because my mind was already awake. Thinking. Planning. I sat at the edge of my bed
For a long time.
going over every possibility. What if she got upset? What if she asked me to leave? What if I made things worse? All of those thoughts came and stayed. But one thought stayed longer than the others. What if I don't go? And something happens I could have seen? That question made everything clear. Because regret is heavier than rejection. And I wasn't willing to carry that. Later that day, I did something I hadn't done in years. I started preparing quietly, not in a way anyone would notice. Just small things. Simple things. I took out a dress. Nothing too formal. Nothing too noticeable. Something that would let me blend in. Because I didn't want attention. I wanted awareness. I wanted to see, without being seen. That evening, my daughter called again. Short call. Just to check in. That's what she said. But I knew it wasn't just that. She was making sure of something. Making sure I wasn't coming. Everything okay? She asked. Her voice careful again. Yes, I said. Normal.
Calm.
I'm just resting. There was a small pause. Then she said something that confirmed everything I had been feeling. You're not upset, right? That question wasn't about my feelings. It was about her decision. And whether I would challenge it. No, I said. And that answer made her relax. I could hear it in her voice. Because she thought everything was settled. That I had accepted it. That I would stay away. And for a moment, I felt something inside me tighten. Because I hated lying to her. Even like this. But this wasn't really a lie. It was protection. Not just for me, but for her too. Because if I told her the truth now, she might pull even further away. And I couldn't risk that. Not when I was this close to understanding everything. Good, she said softly. Then the call ended. And just like that, I was alone again. But this time, it didn't feel the same. Because now, I had a plan. Not a perfect one. Not a safe one. But a necessary one. The night before the wedding, I barely slept. Not out of fear, but anticipation. Because I knew something. Tomorrow, everything would become clear. Tomorrow, I would see the truth. And whatever that truth was, I was ready for it. Or at least, I thought I was. Because sometimes, you think you're prepared. Until the moment actually comes. And then, everything feels different. The morning of the wedding, I stood in front of the mirror, looking at myself, trying to stay steady, trying to remind myself why I was doing this. Not to cause a scene, not to create conflict, but to understand,
To see.
to make sure I wasn't losing her without knowing why. I picked up my bag, took one last breath, and walked toward the door. Because no matter what happened next, I wasn't going to stay away. And by the time the ceremony began, I was already there. The venue was exactly how she would have wanted it. Simple, elegant, soft colors, warm light. Everything looked perfect. And for a moment, standing there at the entrance, I almost forgot why I had come. Because this was supposed to be a happy day.
Her day.
The day every mother imagines for her daughter. But that feeling didn't last long. Because the moment I stepped inside, something felt off. Not obvious. Not something you could point at and say, that's wrong. Just a feeling. The same quiet feeling I had been carrying for days. Stronger now. I kept my head low, not hiding. Just careful. Blending in. People were talking. Smiling. Moving around. No one noticed me. And that's exactly what I needed. Because I wasn't there as a guest. I was there to understand. To see what I hadn't been allowed to see. I moved slowly through the room. Looking. Listening. Not for anything specific. Just paying attention. And then, I saw him. Standing near the front.
Calm. composed,
talking to someone, smiling. From a distance, everything looked normal,
perfect even.
but something about the way he carried himself felt different, controlled, measured, like he was managing something or someone. My eyes shifted, looking for her, and when I finally saw my daughter, my chest tightened, because she looked beautiful, but something about her was missing, not physically, emotionally. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Her movements felt careful, like she was trying to stay within something. And that's when it became clear. This wasn't just a wedding. This was something she was trying to get through, not something she was fully feeling. I stood there for a moment, just watching her, and in that moment, I knew something for sure. She needed me there, even if she didn't realize it. The ceremony hadn't started yet.
People were still arriving,
Moving, talking, and then something happened that made everything shift. He walked toward her, slowly, placed his hand lightly on her arm, and leaned in to say something. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw the reaction. Her shoulders tightened, just slightly, but enough. Enough for someone who was watching carefully. And that was all I needed, because that moment confirmed everything I had been feeling. This wasn't just influence. This was pressure. And whatever he was saying, it wasn't making her comfortable. My heart started beating faster. Not out of panic, but out of clarity. Because now, I wasn't guessing anymore. I was seeing it,
right in front of me.
and then, something unexpected happened. She looked up. Not at him. Not at anyone else. At me. Our eyes met. And, in that moment, everything around us disappeared. No people.
No noise.
Just that one look. And what I saw in her eyes made my chest tighten in a way I wasn't ready for. Relief. Not anger. Not shock. Relief. Like she had been waiting for something and didn't even realize it. And in that moment, I understood something that changed everything. She didn't push me away
Because she wanted to.
she did it.
Because she felt like she had to.
And now, seeing me there, something inside her shifted. But what she didn't know, what no one knew yet, was that this moment was about to change everything. For a moment, neither of us moved. Her eyes stayed on mine, and everything I needed to know was right there. Not in words, in feeling. She wasn't okay, and she had been hiding it.
From me.
From everyone. Maybe even from herself. I took a small step forward, not rushing, not drawing attention, just enough for her to see that I wasn't going anywhere. And that's when something changed in her expression. Not dramatically, just slightly, but enough. Because that careful smile she had been holding began to fade. And for the first time, I saw her. Not the bride. Not the version she was trying to show everyone. My daughter. The one who used to call me every day. The one who didn't hide things. The one who never felt like she had to choose between me and something else. And that's when he noticed. He followed her gaze, turned his head,
And saw me.
the moment his eyes met mine, everything shifted again. That calm expression changed. Not completely, but enough for me to see it. That same controlled look. The same one I remembered. But this time, it wasn't subtle. Because this time, he knew I was there. And more importantly, he knew I wasn't supposed to be. He straightened slightly, his hand still resting near her arm.
But now,
It looked different. Less gentle. More present. Like a reminder. Like a signal. I didn't move closer. I didn't say anything. Because I didn't need to. Everything was already happening.
right in front of me.
And then, he leaned toward her again. This time, closer. Whispering something. And whatever he said, made her freeze. Just for a second. But that second was enough. Because I saw it. That moment of hesitation. That moment where she wasn't sure what to do. And that's when I understood something that made everything clear. This wasn't just pressure. This was control. And she was caught in it. The ceremony was about to start. People were taking their seats. Music was beginning softly. Everything moving forward, like nothing was wrong. But something was wrong. And now, I couldn't ignore it anymore, because if I stayed quiet, this moment would pass, and whatever was happening would continue, and I might lose her completely. I took another step forward, this time, not just to be seen, but to be present, because no matter what happened next, I wasn't going to let her face it alone. I could feel my heart beating faster, not because I was afraid, but because everything I had been feeling was now right in front of me.
Clear.
Undeniable, and impossible to ignore. The music grew louder. Guests settled into their seats. Everything was moving forward, like nothing was wrong, but something was. And I wasn't going to let this moment pass quietly. I walked forward, not fast, not dramatic, just steady. Each step felt heavier than the last, because I knew this wasn't just about being there anymore. This was about stepping into something that had been hidden from me. As I got closer, my daughter didn't look away.
She didn't pretend not to see me.
She just stood there,
Still.
like she was waiting. And that's when I realized something. She knew I would come, maybe not consciously, but somewhere inside her, she knew, and maybe
She needed me too.
I stopped a few steps away from them, close enough to see everything clearly. He turned toward me fully now, his expression calm, but his eyes were not. You weren't invited, he said quietly. Not loud enough for others to hear, but clear enough for me. I didn't respond immediately. I looked at my daughter, because this wasn't about him. It never was. Are you okay? I asked her, my voice calm, steady, but filled with something deeper. Concern, real concern. For a moment, she didn't answer. Her eyes moved slightly, not toward me, toward him. And that small movement told me everything. She was checking him, not herself, not her feelings, him. And in that moment, everything became clear. This wasn't just influence. This was control. And she didn't even realize how much. I'm fine, she said quietly, but her voice didn't match her eyes. And that's when something inside me shifted, because I had heard that tone before. The tone people use when they're trying to convince themselves more than anyone else. You don't need to do this, I said softly. I wasn't talking about the wedding.
I was talking about everything.
The pressure, the control, the silence. For a second, she looked at me, really looked, and I saw it again. That hesitation, that moment where something inside her was trying to break through. But before she could say anything, he stepped in. You should leave, he said, still calm, still controlled. But this time, there was something sharper underneath. Something I hadn't seen clearly before. Authority, like he believed he had the right to decide who stayed
And who didn't?
I didn't look at him. Not yet, because giving him attention would give him control. And I wasn't going to do that. I'm not here for you, I said, my voice still calm. I'm here for her. The words hung in the air, and for a moment, everything felt still. Because this wasn't just a conversation anymore. This was a moment, a turning point, one that couldn't be undone. My daughter's breathing changed slightly. I noticed it immediately. Because when you know someone, you notice the smallest things. And that small change meant something. It meant pressure. It meant she was struggling. And then, she said something that made my chest tighten. Mom, please don't do this here. Her voice wasn't angry. It wasn't cold. It was scared. And that's when I understood something that changed everything. She wasn't pushing me away. She was protecting something. Or someone. And that realization made everything even more serious. Because if she felt like she had to protect him, then something much deeper was going on. Something she couldn't say. Not here.
Not now.
But I had come too far to walk away. Because this wasn't just her wedding anymore. This was the moment where the truth had to come out. Her voice stayed in the air for a moment. Mom, please don't do this here. It wasn't anger. It wasn't rejection. It was fear. And once I heard it clearly, I couldn't ignore it anymore. Because that wasn't the voice of someone in control. That was the voice of someone trying to hold everything together.
And failing.
I stepped closer. Not toward him. Toward her. Slowly.
Carefully.
Because I knew something now. If I pushed too hard, she would shut down. But if I stayed quiet, nothing would change. You don't have to pretend with me, I said softly, my voice steady, gentle, the way I used to speak to her when she was younger, when something was wrong.
But she didn't know how to say it.
Her eyes flickered, just for a moment. And that moment was everything.
Because I saw it.
The conflict, the pressure, the part of her that wanted to speak, and the part that was holding her back. I said I'm fine, she replied. But her voice was weaker now, less certain. And that's when he stepped forward again. Closer this time. Too close. You need to leave, he said. No softness now.
No pelaitnis.
Just control.
Clear. Direct.
Like this was his decision to make. That's when I finally looked at him. Really looked at him. And what I saw wasn't just confidence. It was certainty. The kind of certainty that comes when someone believes they have already won. And that's when I understood something that made everything clear. He didn't expect me to challenge this. He didn't expect me to show up. And most importantly, he didn't expect her to break. But she was. Slowly. Right in front of him. And he knew it. You don't need to do this, I said quietly. Still not raising my voice. Still not creating a scene. Because this wasn't about everyone else. This was about her. Her eyes filled slightly. Not fully, but enough. Enough for me to see the truth she was trying to hide. I just wanted it to go smoothly, she said. There it was. Not I want this. Not I'm happy. Just, I wanted to go smoothly. Like she was trying to survive the moment, not live it. And that's when something inside me shifted completely. Because this wasn't about being invited or not. This wasn't about respect. This was about her. And whatever she was going through was bigger than what she was saying. Then let it go smoothly, I said gently. But not at the cost of yourself. For a moment, she didn't respond. She just looked at me. And in that silence, something broke. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just quietly. Her shoulders dropped slightly. Her breathing changed. And then, she said something that changed everything. He doesn't want you here. The words came out softly, but they hit hard. Because now, it wasn't hidden anymore. It wasn't about her decision. It was about him. I didn't react immediately. I just looked at her. Because I needed to understand. Why? I asked. Simple. Direct. She hesitated. And that hesitation told me everything. Because when the answer is clear, people don't hesitate. But when the truth is complicated or uncomfortable, they do.
He thinks, she paused.
Then lowered her voice. You'll interfere. Interfere. That word felt wrong. Not because of what it meant, but because of where it came from. Not her. Him. And that's when the final piece fell into place. This wasn't about me being a problem. This was about him not wanting someone there who could see through him. And suddenly, everything made sense. The distance, the pressure, the control. Because if I was there, I wouldn't stay quiet. And he knew that. That's why he tried to keep me away. But what he didn't expect, what he couldn't control, was this moment. Because now, the truth was out. And once the truth comes out, it doesn't go back in. For a moment, no one spoke. Not me. Not him. Not even her. Because once the truth is said out loud, everything changes.
And you can feel it.
In the air. In the silence. In the way people look at each other. He stepped forward again. But this time, it wasn't calm. You're creating a scene, he said quietly. Still trying to control it. Still trying to contain it. But something about his voice had changed. That certainty was gone. Because now, he wasn't in control anymore.
No, irraplia.
My voice steady. I'm not creating anything. I paused. This was already here. The words landed heavier than I expected. Because they were true. This moment didn't start with me. It started long before I arrived. With small decisions. Small influences. Small changes. That slowly became something bigger. I turned back to my daughter. Because in the end, This wasn't about him. It never was. It was about her. You don't have to choose right now, I said gently. Her eyes filled again, but this time, she didn't look away. You don't have to prove anything to anyone, I continued, my voice softer now. You just have to be honest with yourself. The words stayed between us. Simple, but real. And for a moment, I saw something change in her. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but clearly. The way her shoulders relaxed, the way her breathing slowed, the way she finally stopped looking at him and focused on me. And then, she did something I hadn't seen her do all day. She took a step forward. Toward me. Not him.
Me.
That one step said everything, because it wasn't about distance anymore. It was about choice. And for the first time, she was making one. I don't want to feel like this, she said quietly, her voice shaking slightly. I don't want a day to feel like something I have to survive. Those words broke something open, because that was the truth. Not the wedding, not the plans. Her. How she felt. And once she said it, there was no going back. He stepped forward quickly. That's not what this is, he said, his voice sharper now, trying to pull things back, trying to regain control. But it was too late, because she didn't look at him. Not this time. I think I need a moment, she said.
Calm. Clear.
And for the first time,
certain.
She turned slightly. Not toward the ceremony. Not toward the guests. Toward the quiet space behind us. Away from everything. And as she walked, I didn't follow immediately, because I knew something. She wasn't walking away from the wedding. She was walking toward herself. And sometimes, that's the most important step someone can take. He stood there, still, watching her, but he didn't stop her, because even he knew something had changed, something he couldn't control anymore. I took one last look at him, not angry, not emotional, just aware, and then I turned and followed my daughter, not to lead her, not to guide her, just to be there, the way I should have always been, without distance, without silence, just present. Later that day, things didn't go exactly as planned. The ceremony was delayed.
People were confused.
There were questions, but none of that mattered, because something more important had happened.
She had paused.
She had thought. She had listened to herself. And, in the end, that mattered more than any perfect moment. Because a perfect moment means nothing if it's built on something that doesn't feel right. We sat together later. Just the two of us. No pressure.
No expectations.
And for the first time in a long time, she spoke freely. Not carefully. Not cautiously. Honestly. And as I listened, I realized something. This wasn't just about her wedding. It was about everything leading up to it. Every moment she felt unsure. Every moment she ignored that feeling. Every moment she chose silence instead of truth. But now, that silence was gone. And that changed everything. Because sometimes, the hardest thing to do is not making a decision. It's admitting how you really feel. And once you do that, everything else becomes clearer. Even if it's not easier. Even if it changes things. Because the truth always does. And if there's one thing I learned from all of this, it's this. Trust isn't just about believing someone else. It's about trusting yourself when something doesn't feel right. Even if it's uncomfortable. Even if it changes everything. Because ignoring that feeling is how you lose yourself. And no relationship,
no moment,
no decision is worth that.